clients were being sent to court.
Unfortunate that my clients will be put before court and we will not be informed earlier. It was whilst they were in court that they started calling me that they've taken them to court and I should rush to court. And I told them I wasn't in town.
And with the cynicism that greeted the announcement by government of a coup plot, we ask if the claim is now more believable after 5 arraignments. Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia has meanwhile assured of government's commitment to provide the needed resources to counter emerging terror threats from the sub-region.
We should therefore redouble our intelligence gathering efforts and sharpen our readiness in order not to be taken by surprise. The government on its part will do all within its means to ensure that you get the necessary training and logistics.
Also, current law students at the Ghana School of Law joined forces with failed applicants to protest mass failures in recent years. In business,
chartered accountants fined for their rules leading to collapse of some banks given up to January 2020 to pay or have their licenses revoked.
Matter of giving them time. Some of the firms have threatened and we are yet to reply them. Some are asking for some time and some are asking for a rebate or something of that sort. But of course, my means they will pay.
And after 4 weeks of the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, we tell you the impact story, including the highs.
Bid for house?
No.
You are going to sell?
No, we are not going to sell. Sometimes you prepare for the animals.
Hey, you preparing the banku for animals?
And stew.
Banku and stew for animals.
We'll tell you about the lows as well. I'm Arba Kumsin and Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio at Kokomimle here in Accra with digital address GA 0992539. Thanks for your company. Now, 2 more persons arrested in connection with the elaborate plot targeted at the presidency were put before court on Friday. The senior military officer, Colonel Samuel Kojo Ganmeli, and Gershon Akpa, a civilian employee of the Ghana Armed Forces, were charged with possession of explosives, arms, and ammunition without lawful excuse. It's the latest in a series of arraignments following government statement on Monday about the joint security operation which led to the retrieval of several arms, explosive devices and ammunition from locations in Accra and Kpong Baoleshi in Dodowa. Here is a wrap of what we know so far.
As it stands, Dr. Frederick McPalm, along with 2 others, have been charged with 5 counts of conspiracy to commit crime, namely manufacture of arms and ammunition without lawful authority, possession of explosives and firearms without lawful authority, manufacture of firearms without lawful authority, and manufacture of explosives and ammunition without lawful authority. As the investigations continue, Joy News has gathered inside information from sources within the security agencies. What we know so far indicates the doctor and a ring of people allegedly contacted the staff at the ammunition depot seeking 10 AK-47 guns at a fee, 7,000 cedis, of which was part payment made. They subsequently demanded a refund, a move our sources believe was either because the requested ammunition could not be secured as scheduled or because they got the ammunition they wanted elsewhere. Empty magazines were allegedly found and retrieved at the premises of Citadel Hospital. Investigative assumptions by security agencies looking into the matter are that some of the guns may be hidden. They hope to unravel this as the investigations unfold. Government statement refers to a group formed by the alleged coup plotters called Take Action Ghana. Our security sources say it is a cross-sector group consisting of student, market women, taxi drivers, people in academia, police officers, ex-servicemen, as well as active military officers, some of whom have already been picked up. They add these groups were being psyched to take action at an appointed time in various parts of the country as part of the alleged plan to destabilize it. It is unclear the specific number of active servicemen allegedly involved, but at least 12 officers have been implicated, although some were also used as informants to infiltrate several meetings which government says were held by the arrested doctor and those he recruited. There is also an alleged possibility he may have recruited others who are off the radar at the moment. We know a stop list has been issued the Ghana Immigration Service already to make sure that those connected to the matter do not leave the country as investigations continue. Our sources corroborate government claims. Recorded audio and video evidence exist as proof of government's allegation, and that enough evidence was gathered as far back as July last year, but arrests were not made to allow for further surveillance on those involved. They also tell us the pictures being circulated, some of which are being used cynically and jokingly on social media, are about 1% of the story, which is why government insists this is not a hoax. Several questions have popped up as to why the 3 arrested were not charged with treason. The sources say the decision was taken on the basis of the need to build a strong case for court vis-a-vis the constitutional requirement not to keep them in custody for more than 48 hours. This, we're told, informed the current charges, which are equally grave offences. The sale and purchase of the chemicals referred to by government's initial statement are being seriously investigated, as 22 improvised explosive devices picked up from Dr. McPalm's premises are also being tested to establish the component and the extent of damage they were built to cause. Again, our sources within the security services say an initial profile of Dr. McPalm shows he may hold radical thoughts against political systems and corruption, and sought to spread same across his recruit. Investigations should ascertain how he was trained himself to, as alleged by government, build the 22 IEDs. Devices and other ammunitions allegedly found in his possession, plus his ability to recruit several civilians and active military officers to execute the alleged plans, present a dangerous person. In the end, our sources indicate the team whose leaders have now been arrested were close to the tail end of the alleged operation, hence the arrest, and that the worst could have happened if those arrests were not made. Investigations are, however, ongoing into the charges on unlawful possession and manufacture of arms, but government has indicated treason charges are imminent.
Now, Friday's arraignment of the senior military officer and the civilian employee of the Ghana Armed Forces brings to 5 the number of persons charged so far in the apparent coup plot. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
According to state prosecutors, the 2 are members of Take Action Ghana, a group that is led by Dr. McPalm, who has already been charged before the Kaneshie District Court. The 2 were charged with possession of arms and ammunition and explosives without lawful excuse. ASP Sylvester Asari informed the court that they were engaged in a plot aimed at engaging in a series of demonstrations geared at toppling the government. He says they have since gone a step further with their plans to secure the services of a local weapon manufacturer who is already in the custody of the police. They said so far 6 pistols had been produced, each at a cost of 2,300 cedis, with a number of explosives, each at a cost of 400 cedis already produced. And these were all part of the weapons that they intended to use to carry out their action. He asked that the court remands them into custody as investigations were still ongoing. This was granted with the magistrate directing that they be kept in the custody of the Bureau of National Investigations, which the court has been informed is the lead investigative agency. The case has been adjourned to October 9, where all individuals, the 3 who have already been charged, and these 2 individuals who were also charged on Friday, will be put before the court for hearing to continue. My name is Joseph Akable, reporting from the Kaneshie District Court for Joy News.
A lawyer for the alleged coup players, Victor Adawudu, has been raising concerns about how state prosecutors are handling the case. He's been particularly unhappy that he only got to know about his client's appearance in court when they were sent to court.
It's unfortunate that my clients will be put before court and we will not be informed earlier. I was at the BNI custody, had conference with them, and left there as late as 5:30 p.m. yesterday. And I'm sure that whilst our discussion, and I spoke to the colonel, that so hasn't the military come for him or anything since he's been in BNI custody since Monday. If nothing happens, I was going to file habeas corpus. And I'm sure that is why he was put before court. And it was whilst they were in court that they started calling me that they've taken them to court and I should rush to court. And I told you I wasn't in town. I had come to court in Odumase Krobo. So it is unfortunate that I've been there. They know my number and they know the procedure to call me. They failed to call me. It all tells you that there is something that is being covered up there. And I have insisted on my word and said that this is all set up, is dilatory, and we cannot glorify this. We will wait patiently, let them be put and charged, their plea taken, and the drama will unfold. This nation will be shocked to hear. And I will say it here and there that, I'm now beginning to feel, to understand that sometimes when we have professionals and we also have some miscreants within the security setup that they do unintelligent things that sometimes it is believed and we are told, we would wake up to see this drama unfold.
So your clients were in court today without legal representation and they were charged. What will be the next line of action for you? What do you intend to do about this?
We were not told when they were going to court. We were not informed. This is the rule of law. We're in a government of rule of law. So how will you take somebody without telling his lawyer when you have his numbers and everything?
Well, joining us on the phone lines now is Colonel Retired Festus Abuaje. Many thanks for your time, sir. Now, your initial reaction to...
Hello. Hello.
Yes, your initial reaction to the government's announcement of a plot to destabilize the country was that you were unconvinced the people are named and the weapons they were said to have suggested they had the wherewithal to do what they were accused of. Indeed, a large section of the public ridiculed the story, and in fact, they continue to make fun of it. So, have you had a change of mind now that 5 persons have been arraigned?
Well,
As a step,
there will be 2 clear dimensions to this issue at this stage. There will be the legal dimension, which will relate to things like rules of evidence and those kinds of things. I'm not an expert to, speak about that. We'll leave that to, the lawyers, both on the government side and on the defense counsel's side. But I can base my discussions on the first statement, and probably that is the only statement that the government has put out by the Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. And suggest that that statement had mixed messages. And the mixed messages have been substantiated. I think as of yesterday, I'm told that the Deputy Minister of Information insisted that it was a coup in the making. But the substantive minister said no, it wasn't a coup. From inception, I had insisted that we could do the analysis to use the diagnostic to suggest whether it's a coup or not. But the government had fallen short of that, and therefore I wouldn't want personally to ascribe a coup to it. But our difficulties over things like the targeting of the presidency and what that meant, and activities to destabilize the state and what exactly the government meant. But increasingly, the government is saying that, yes, there were plans to destabilize the state. Now, activities to take out the presidency or attack the presidency could be interpreted in many different ways. If an American president is killed, assassinated, for instance, it's not a coup. So why in this case would we want to argue that because somebody is planning to target the president, i.e. Flagstaff House or Jubilee, or the individual who holds that office, would we want to suggest that it is a coup? I'm trying to suggest that the government needs to come out and tell Ghanaians exactly what it is that this group was planning. Was it planning a coup? Or was it just planning to destabilize the country with no further political objectives as to taking over the reins of administration and so on and so forth?
I think the government could have communicated this better.
Excuse me?
I'm asking that clearly you think that government could have communicated this better.
Based on the information that it had, it could have made the statement a bit more clearer. You know, if it had said that the group intended to destabilize the state with no connotations of a coup, that was fine. If it was said that the group intended to actually overthrow the state, that would have been okay. But the mixed messages coming from the government in writing and in speech, on media or in media spaces, is not helping. Then added to that is this circumspection that some people think that, and I would not write them off, that states are capable of all sorts of machinations. So there is a segment of Ghanaian society, whether politically inclined or otherwise, who think that the whole story is a ploy by the government to divert or deflect attention from other issues. In analysis, you cannot write that off. So especially now that the case is to court, and I think I heard a bit of what Councillor Dauda was saying.
Just a quick correction, Colonel. In nowhere in the Ministry of Information statement did they mention coup.
No, they didn't mention that. But I'm told, I haven't heard him directly, but I've heard a couple of radio stations mentioning that or asserting that the Deputy Minister of Information yesterday appeared on one of the stations and mentioned a coup. And that was also refuted by the Minister, Kojo Nkrumah, that I heard, you know, myself, who was saying that it wasn't a coup.
Right.
So all I'm trying to suggest is that there are mixed messages coming from the government. Is this attempt, or was this attempt a coup attempt? Or was it merely an attempt to destabilize the state? And I want to make the distinction that an attempt to destabilize the state might not necessarily mean a coup.
Right. Right.
It's up to the government based on the information that it has.
Okay. So we need more clarity on that. But Colonel, you've been in the army and you know the workings or dealings of the Ghana Armed Forces. This personnel of the Armed Forces who was picked up, the expectation was that he would be court-martialed, but we are seeing that he's going through the civil process. Tell us about how this works when it involves a military officer.
I've had discussions with two legal minds, all military, and one of them has suggested, or probably three, that the case of treason should or could be tried by a civilian court. The technicalities are that you now have two elements. You have a civilian element, and according to the government statement, you have a military element. Now, trying the two different elements in two different courts may not work for the government's case. So if the government decides that it wants to try the military officers in a civilian court, there is no law that bars military officers from being tried in a civilian court. Right. But on the contrary, civilian personnel under our current dispensation, democratic and otherwise, cannot be tried by a military tribunal.
Very well, very well. Thank you so much for your expertise and your time. That was a retired Colonel Festus Aboagye there. And we stay with the armed forces because government has urged personnel of the Ghana Armed Forces to exhibit precision and speed during their intelligence gathering processes to effectively neutralize threats posed by terror groups. With Ghana's neighbors currently battling such threats and with the possibility of same materializing in Ghana, The Vice President assured personnel of the forces of government's commitment to providing the needed logistics to counter them. Dr. Bawumia said this at the 2019 edition of the Ghana Army Week celebration at the Ghana Military Academy on Friday. Latif Idris has more.
It's the 2019 edition of the Ghana Army Week celebration here at the Ghana Military Academy. The Vice President has made a huge statement here. He is called and charged officers of the Ghana Armed Forces to be extra vigilant so they are able to neutralize any attempt by both internal and external aggressors to destabilize the country.
Our sub-region is faced with the serious problem of terrorist activities. Our neighbors are presently battling jihadist movements. The threat is moving closer home, and we are putting in place measures to effectively deal with those threats. We should therefore redouble our intelligence gathering efforts and sharpen our readiness in order not to be taken by surprise. The government on its part will do all within its means to ensure that you get the necessary training and logistics required to carry out your counterterrorism operations. Your support to the other security agencies as part of your internal operations has brought about sanity in most of the troubled spots across the country. I urge you to continue to show commitment and dedication to ensure that all troubled spots across the country are brought under control. I urge you to continue to work closely with your civilian counterparts as well as sister security agencies and institutions for the safety and security of the citizenry in the country. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, I also urge all troops to continue to work to promote civil-military relations and forge a closer relation with your civilian counterparts to promote healthy relations in the country. The need for good working relations with your sister security services and intelligence bodies is very essential in times of terrorist threats in our sub-region. No need to spend our energies attacking each other. When terrorists attack, we need to be together in the right frame of mind and posture to react as appropriate.
Now, current students of the Ghana School of Law are joining forces with prospective law students who were unsuccessful in the attempt to gain admission in recent years to protest the phenomenon of mass failures. The results of 1,820 applicants who sat the entrance exam in July this year was released with only 128 gaining admission. Meanwhile, out of 474 students who sat the bar exam last year, only 91 passed and were therefore qualified to be called to the bar. 206 of those who failed had to repeat the entire course. The students say they don't believe the failures are genuine and have accused the Independent Examinations Committee of poorly administering the exam. They say they will stage a demonstration to protest the situation, and they're also planning to petition President Akufo-Addo, himself a lawyer, on the development. In the studio with me is Ni Adokwe Kujo. He is a member of the Coalition for Legal Education Reform. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, this is the first time I'm hearing about this coalition. Who constitutes this coalition? Who are the members? Okay,
this coalition is made up of lawyers, it's made up of students, including those at the School of Law, the law faculties, and members of the civil society. We believe that it's time to change how students have access to the professional law course. And that's until these reforms are implemented. We believe that there has to be some activism to bring the issues to the fore.
So what are some of these reforms that you're suggesting should be implemented?
Well, first and foremost, the entrance examination was started because the faculties increased, and as a result, the number of students seeking admission to the professional law course, which is currently only administered at the Ghana School of Law, outstripped the capacity. And so in the thinking of the General Legal Council, entrance examination was a means to sieve out those that they wouldn't admit. Now we think that, especially when the number of law faculties has shifted from 4 when the entrance exam started to as many as 15 plus, it's really unfortunate that we'll stick to that model. We need to bear in mind that even by establishing the Independent Examination Council and still maintaining the Ghana School of Law, which is just a study center, then it doesn't really justify why we should maintain the quote-unquote monopoly that the Ghana School of Law enjoys, because the various law faculties are there. They can equally administer the professional law course.
But how do you respond to those who argue that the position, the defense by the Ghana School of Law authorities, that they cannot accommodate these huge numbers is legitimate?
We don't dispute that fact. When it was just the University of Ghana that was producing LLB holders, it was legitimate to maintain it. But now when you have over 15, you need to expand. And if you can't expand, you need to see how these faculties can take up the load. And let's put on record that some of the courses,
what suggestions do you have? I mean, the reality is that they don't have the facilities to accommodate the huge numbers.
Who doesn't?
The Ghana School of Law.
We don't dispute that fact, and that is why we are advocating that let's shift it. Let me state that as far back as last year, April, a petition was sent to the Attorney General, and she responded and said that the content of the petition is self-explanatory. And just as Cabinet has directed that the problem should be solved, she is forwarding the content of that petition to the General Legal Council with a view that they will incorporate it into the solutions that have been preferred. And in our opinion, the solution is very straightforward. The Ghana School of Law, as long as we maintain this structure, will have capacity issues. So if we allow students who have LLB to find their own tuition as private students, these students can find their tuition at their law faculties or accredited law firms in this country. Let's bear in mind that the General Legal Council still accredits or approves all the law firms we have in this country. So if we have lawyers who are in practice, are we suggesting that they are not capable of mentoring these students to be able to pass the bar exams? In our proposal, we suggested that allow these students to have 3 years when they register for the first time. And then within the 3 years, they attempt to pass the exams that those at the School of Law may take. And if you want to check if the students are making progress, you can subject them to either 3 or 4 months or 6 months interval assessment. That makes the Independent Examination Committee relevant. So then all the law faculties will then present their students. If there are law firms that also decide that, look, let's take advantage, let's mentor a new generation, they will also have their students, and then all these students will sit the exams. When the results are out, we can rank the faculties, we can rank the various law firms and see whether we are producing quality lawyers for this country. The Attorney General believes that this is a workable solution, and she has forwarded it to the General Legal Council. As far as a letter is concerned, it's been 1 year plus.
What do you know about why the General Legal Council is unable to implement these proposals or suggestions?
Unfortunately, we are unable to speak for the General Legal Council, and efforts in the past to get response from the Office of the Judicial Secretary, who were told should inform us, has proved futile. So as far as we know, it's important to place on record that somewhere last year when this matter came up, the General Legal Council said that it was conducting an audit of the various law faculties. It's been well over a year. We do not know the outcome of that audit. The General Legal Council is the regulator, and just like the banking sector, if there are law faculties that need to be closed down, then they should. If they don't, and you come up with these results where 128 out of 1,820 students only pass, it's an indictment on the various law faculties. And so far, we haven't had any statement to this effect, whether that there are calls on vice chancellors with law faculties asking what is the problem. Because this is an examination which is conducted, nobody brings out chief examiner's report. WIRE conducts examination all the time. You can go to their website and see the chief examiner's report. It guides the academia as to what they need to do to improve their students. In this case, it is shrouded in opacity.
Now, there's also this school of thought that, you know, yes, of course, we on the face of it, we can all see that practically there are not enough logistics to accommodate the huge numbers. But there's also the school of thought that it's a deliberate attempt to restrict the numbers that come into this sort of, you know, very cult-like, noble profession. Well, what do you make of that?
Well, to every speculation, there appears to be some iota of truth in it. To a very large extent. Even the Chief Justice in the last pronouncement has said publicly that she would not permit mass production of lawyers. And let's put on record that as far as interpretation of that is concerned, it does not mean that mass production of lawyers is the same as inferior lawyers. So that clearly answers the question. And we would like to call on government that the ruling class dictates the ruling policy. The General Legal Council is not an independent constitutional body. As far as the act establishing it is concerned, under Section 1.5, the General Legal Council is supposed to go by policy directions given to them by the minister, in this case the Attorney General. So we are wondering why we cannot implement this. We would like to remind government of the promise it made in the 2016 manifesto of the MPP at page 31, the educational policy, to shift educational system from merely passing examination to raising literate citizens to citizens who are engaged. And this should be directing the policy.
Very well. Niadoke, so very quickly, you say that you are planning to stage a demonstration and petition the president. When will that take place? Well,
so far on the 7th of October, there will be a demonstration. We are calling on parents, we are calling on everybody. Today, it could be students there. Now, tomorrow, it could be you. So we are calling on all law students. This is the time for us to take action on this. We cannot wait any longer. If the numbers continue to increase, we shouldn't wait till a time where a student will commit suicide before we realize that there's a massive problem to be attended to.
All right, many thanks. That is Niadoke Cudjoe. He's a member of the Coalition for Legal Education Reform. Many thanks for your time. Now we're taking a break on Joy News Prime, but before then though, let me share some of the comments you have sent to us on our Facebook. On our first story, we asked, do you now believe there was a plot to destabilize the country as claimed by government now that 5 persons have been charged in connection with the attempt? Okay, and El Haj Peterson says, I still don't believe and I can't think far that the same people who pursued Dr. Kwame Nkrumah with bombs are afraid of kitchen knife. And Francis Alowado says, those who have no knowledge of coup in this country and Africa as a whole are the ones who are so naive and believing these stories. And still ahead, after 4 weeks of the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, we'll tell you the impact story, including the highs. And the lows.
I don't like that. I'm going to mayor over here. If they come here, they should inform me. They should go. I want to bring it. They should go.
And the humor.
Wait for house.
No.
You are going to sell.
No, we are not going to sell. Sometimes you prepare for the animals.
Hey, you preparing the banku for animals
and stew.
Banku and stew for animals.
You're welcome back. Now, this is the story of a couple who have loved one another, although they have never heard each other's voices, not even the cry of their children. Most interesting is their ability to communicate with their able children to resolve family issues, including payment of school fees, without the help of anyone. Mohammed Nuruddin brings us the story of the silent couple.
They say deep inside the eyes of a true lover lies the heart of a true lover. But when does love become blind and a deaf mute too? The streets of Oforikrom leads us to a heart-touching story. A love story against all odds. A story that speaks to the heart of a couple. 48-year-old Kwavi Agbemado and 47-year-old Edith Asar Agbemado both have hearing and speech impairment. They have been married for over 20 years now. It's a Saturday morning and Mr. Kwavi is praying for the family.
Since I'm willing to enter into tertiary level, I usually pray on it. Last year he wanted me to buy forms and I said no, we should wait for next year. So he was just praying and praying hard. Maybe God will show us that one day a light will fall on us so that we can enter into university.
As he tells us about their love story, the two have 3 children together, 2 boys and a girl. Their second born, 21-year-old Godfred Ofori Agbemado, is a born sign language interpreter who aids communication. On arrival at the home, Mr. Agbemado and his family were watching one of Anas's expose on human rituals.
I can't interpret for that to understand completely, so I just have to interpret for my mom. And my mom find a way to tell that to understand what I'm trying to say, because I've been signing fast. I don't know how to sign slowly and break it down for that to understand. So I sign the normal. If that wasn't visually impaired, he could have understand me. Because he can't see, I just have to interpret for mom, and mom have to break it down for that to understand.
They met in school where they both expressed love for each other and later got married. But their first dating involved a lot of signs and a lot of letters. But how do they express deep love without words?
Okay, so after visiting that, paying a visit to that's where the relationship started. So because they have been knowing each other for so long. So you became pregnant? Okay. That also came to his house and visit her too. But she never knew she was having a baby. So one day his mom called her and asked, Edith, you are pregnant? He said no. So he was denying, so she went back to school. So the mistress called her and asked her, you are pregnant, is your parents away? He said no. So they have to call his parents and call dad's parents to the office.
Though Mr. Agbemado is now suffering from glaucoma, they love Indian movies. But how do they truly understand the scenes?
For Ghanaian movies or the black movies, I've been only comedian and those stuff. So as for Indian movie, he wished in watching Indian movie because they always do actions, fights, or even how they relate. So she disliked Ghanaian movies, so because it's full of funny and jokes. As for Indian movies,
Godfred says sometimes he regrets being born in a family of hearing and speech impairment.
Most of my friends mock me. Sometimes if I call dad or mom for PTA meeting, I just have to sit by my dad. And while the PTA is going on, I have to interpret for them. They say, with your teachers, we did this subject, it was very cool, so you have to left the classroom and interpret for your dad. I said, oh, but most of my friends also motivate me. They are always happy to see me. And most of my friends always come here and visit us because they want to see how I interpret, I sign, because it seems so wonderful for them.
So you were not taught, you were born, as a sign language?
Yes. I didn't even want to learn the sign language, but Dad have to force that in us, because if even you go for school and your bills are given to you, when you come, Dad won't even pay you the money. You have to interpret for him to understand what's the money he's supposed to pay to you. So you can't just say you can't interpret, so you won't collect your fees and go and pay. So
He says efforts should be made to get more sign language interpreters for television for people like his parents.
That's where I'm forcing myself into. I want the whole nation to consider their situation. So it's very difficult. Sometimes if our TV, even the volume goes off, and I can only see them speaking without hearing the voice or the sound, I even get annoyed or very disappointed. So if in their situation they are to watch television without no interpretation or no interpreter, sometimes they feel it very difficult. So they always have to depend on someone else before they can hear news. That's why I'm hoping maybe in future we can establish an institution for sign language interpreters so that we can have more interpreters in this country.
Currently, only one national television has a sign language interpreter for news, GTV, and that is the only TV station Mr. and Mrs. Agbemado monitor happenings in the country. Whether there are more sign language interpreters on television stations operated in the country or not, it is for better or for worse. This is where they attend their church to praise God and have fun with colleagues. The relationship between these two is a clear indication that love can exist in whichever form. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin's report for Joy News.
Interesting. Now, it's been 4 weeks since the Joy Clean Ghana campaign kick-started with the sole aim of encouraging and, when necessary, shaming people into cleaning up their communities. Over the past few weeks, the team here at Joy News, led by health inspectors at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, have visited communities in the city and managed to get the residents to clean up after them. The task force has described the exercise as successful, as all the communities visited have turned over a new leaf. It hasn't been easy though. Joy News' resident sanitation ambassador, Nancy Emefa-Dwadosi, has a wrap of the highs, the lows and the humour of the last 4 weeks.
First stop was at the Okankwe South constituency. Here, more than half of the offenders were food vendors. Many were resistant, but the inspector, Joseph Asitanga, would not budge.
You can see some of the things, the challenges we go through. They hoard some of this dirty, purified, very dirty, rotten fish under their table and clean around, use it to prepare soup for us again. Okay, so we're preparing her for court.
The highlight from the day, though, an entire community decided to atone for the sins of one man.
You know, if there is a dustbin there, you will know there will not be a need for you to come and put. Every day we have been saying today we've come to catch you at the act.
So I want to see brooms here, then you start to show a sign of cleaning the place, then I'll let us go.
The team's second outing was a memorable one. The assemblyman for the area distracted the exercise, prematurely bringing it to an end.
I don't like that. I was getting the mayor over here. If you come here, they should inform me. They should go.
Does it mean that if they are going to have elections, you shouldn't clean your environment? If somebody doesn't clean the environment, the person falls sick and die. Would a dead person come and vote for you?
Day 3 saw a mixed bag of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So why can't we live with cholera within the area? If you have toilet like this, in the bathroom, and this is where the children eat, this is where you smoke fish. Preparing banku here. I want to see whether it's for commercial or domestic consumption. Let me get that.
So, Joseph Asitanga is trying to get some answers.
You are going to eat in the house?
Food.
Is it for house?
No.
You are going to sell?
No, we are not going to sell. Sometimes we prepare for the animals.
Hey! preparing the banku for animals
and stew.
Banku and stew for animals. What type of animals? Dogs. Where are they? Okay, we would like to inspect the dogs.
No, they are not in this place.
Where are they?
They are my auntie's place, so they are in the cage. So
when you prepare them,
yes.
You prepare the banku and then stew.
They eat, Papa.
And you go and feed the dogs.
What's the name of the animal?
So you see how tricky they are playing with us. Very, very tricky. Our presence here, he intelligently changed the situation as the banku is going to be used to feed dogs.
Our latest stop was at the second-class residential area, North Kaneshie. But the team uncovered everything not befitting a second-class residential area.
Raw excreta is being disposed, channeled through the house into the main drain, which is likely to lead to an outbreak of disease as we are in the rainy season. And we know this is the season cholera is likely to appear. And if they are disposing raw excreta through the house, the excreta is not even treated, just raw. It is an eyesore.
Some medicine?
Yeah. It does small, this thing, but it leaves in small leaves.
So you use, what did you use to add the leaves in?
This one be only appetition. Yeah, you know
added the leaves to it.
Yeah.
So who has done any examination or analysis to approve this that you can sell?
Unless my boss they
taking everything away from here and
take everything, what I go sell.
The Joy Clean Ghana campaign has been successful. 42 individuals served with notices and given days to improve their sanitary conditions.
It's time for our editorial, and this week the Joy News editorial focuses on the concerns of the families of the missing Takoradi girls after the police declared them dead. Of sadness and disbelief when the Inspector General of Police made this announcement.
The Ghana Police Service has, with regret, therefore informed the families that the remains are those of Ruth Abaka, Priscilla Blessing Bintum, Ruth Love Quazen, and Priscilla Crunchy.
Many of us did not see this coming, or perhaps we did, but our minds were not prepared for the pain and agony that racked our collective conscience when those words were said. The girls are dead. After all, we had been told by the security heads that they were on course to rescuing the girls who had been kidnapped by their captors who had been demanding ransoms.
Together with the BNI, we've worked very well, and currently we know where the girls are. I am unable to give the details because we don't want to compromise their safety. We are working hard together with other stakeholders so that these girls are brought back home safely. The assurance to the family is that they should keep on keeping on. The ladies, we know where they are and they are safe.
Now, we all have sisters or daughters or cousins, and so we could all feel what the families were going through as they awaited the outcome of the DNA test. Hopes were high that the outcome will be negative. Sadly, it emerged positive, according to the police. But it didn't come as a surprise when the families of the 4 girls refused to accept the outcome of the police forensic team's test on the DNA extracted from the human remains they exhumed in Kansaurode.
When we are sending the bones to them, no one of us witnessed that very bones. And you don't know how it was processed. You don't know how you end everything. And you told us and promised us that you will come and assemble us at the police headquarters and inform us whether positive or negative. Now that you have mentioned this, are you doing the right thing? There is no iota of truth of what they have said.
The families accused the police hierarchy of not being truthful with them and insisted they had been assured their daughters would be returned to them.
I'm a Minjintum, or send the 13th March. I'm not catching me there. I want to from our wages car. It's my can't show Bia. 13th March, the 2 work at the Master Mitchell. That man can't show any happen chapel around 9 o'clock.
News of the children's deaths left the families very broken, but they have not moved on. They want an independent test conducted to satisfy themselves that those bones are absolutely that of their girls. And their calls have been backed by some respected experts and renowned pathologists, Professor Bedu Akosa.
And it disturbed me enormously because it was almost as if we'd closed the chapter. But I've been in pathology since 1980. And in every situation, it calls for a second opinion.
So you have pathologists and criminologists saying there should be a second opinion. And why not? If you have people casting doubt on the quality of your work, why will you not allow them to conduct an independent test to put to rest those doubts that linger not just in the minds of the families, but some Ghanaians? While the forensics expert has defended his work, here's what he had to say.
All four were females. That was very clear. And to be honest, that day when we did that work, I got a bit like depressed. I felt like, oh, okay. And adding that to the age range determination, I was a bit more scared that even though this is not supposed to be like, I don't have to be very emotional. I feel like, you know what, we are getting closer.
But the family is not buying it. And more than a week after this dreaded announcement was made, they accuse the police of failing to grant their request to hand over the bones of their loved ones.
They will not accept the outcome of the DNA result, simply because their utterances, their communication, and assurance that they gave to the whole world, the whole Ghana, that they have seen the girls, they have rescued them, and they were even receiving medical attention. So for that matter, we are thinking that maybe the kidnappers are demanding for a ransom.
People are emotional, and rightly so, because this involves the lives of loved ones. A family member they would never be seeing again, that they never dreamt would be taken away from them. It's not that we don't trust the police, we trust them. But the police has not spoken publicly on this matter after the IGP's announcement. It is important not just for themselves, but the families as well, to grant their request and have them conduct their own test on these bones, because this will give them some form of closure. In their minds and their hearts, they would finally move on because they have established the truth. So the question is, Ghana Police Service, why is it taking forever for you to communicate with the families and give in to their request? Mr. IGP, Madam CID boss, please return the bones to the families. Whether they choose to bury it or they want to test it, release the remains to them. After all, it belongs to them. That is how we wrap up Joy News Prime for today. Thank you for staying with us throughout the week. I'm Marba Kumsin. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. Good night.